I think we're going to move on to our second section now because we're talking about the holistic experience. So we're going to be talking about activities you guys did inside and outside of school. Starting with P-Bomb, you set on an organization that was widely praised by the Ministry of Health. So you also won multiple international awards. Can you tell us about that?
About that organization in particular? So, okay, I started an organization called iSaver. Basically, our organization makes up these self-diagnosable eye screening kits to rural schools around Thailand. And we try to help teachers diagnose students for lazy eye and refractive errors, because refractive errors are basically the common สายตาสั้นสายตายาวสายตาเอียง and if they're left untreated, they can turn into a lazy eye, which may not be able to be cured in the future. And so I kind of made a distribution kit that teachers were able to diagnose themselves without the help of medical professionals. And basically what you're trying to look for in an activity is that it's unique and impactful. And you also have to take initiative. So, I feel like my project was impactful because obviously it was able to reach a large community. And it was unique because if there were organizations already doing this, then why are there still students, having permanent lazy eyes, or it can even eventually turn into blindness if not pre-diagnosed. And so that's generally the idea. You want to start with a project that's unique and impactful, but you also have to make sure that you're passionate about it, or else it becomes unsustainable. And you keep in mind that you have to do this for the rest of your high school, career, and you want to do it.
How about you, Pishwin? You've gotten farther in the Thailand Computer Olympiad selection camps than any other international school student ever. And you've also contributed to the computer science education in Thailand, right?
Oh, yeah. So aside from my Olympiad life, so during the late stages of my Olympic career, actually the professor from Kasetsat University, who was responsible for training the camps, actually proposed to him like a new renovation of of the current government-sponsored sort of programming education website in Thailand. So I guess me and my friends were just like, you know what? We've used this for a long time. It's pretty old. We've moved on to new platforms and de facto platform for like aspiring Thai Olympiad CS people. So we wanted to kind of give back to the community. So we kind of started this renovation project for the website. So scrapped the old thing, built it from scratch. Hundreds and hundreds of hours of software development went into that, and it's currently in use right now by many people actually who are in the Olympiad sphere. So yeah, that's kind of my.
I think it's kind of important here to note how Peak and Fresh, I believe, mentioned earlier that even if you're a STEM applicant, you don't have to make yourself purely STEM. So what Shwin did and what I did was applying STEM to activism, which I believe conforms to that policy.
Shwin, can you share what your website name is in case some of us would like to see?
Oh, it's programming.in.th. You can search it up. There's some missions right now.
So it's programming.in.th. Yeah. Okay, for Pisai, you are really passionate in art and who has been also commercially successful with your own art exhibition. Can you share with us about how else you pursued your artistic passions?
Throughout my high school life, I just finding time in the holidays or the weekends to think about the next piece that I'm gonna do and work hard on it and keep doing it, collecting past works and stuff. And that finally amounted to an opportunity for me to collaborate with another gallery, and they helped me they allowed me to put my art in display in their exhibition. So that was a great opportunity, and it really pushed me to be more professional. And I think that really shows the university that I do have a background and I can survive this brutal art world because of the work ethic and the level of professionalism that goes into having exhibiting at like a gallery and being professional and keeping up with all like the expectations.
Pisa, your art has also been sold to many places for high sums of money, right?
Yes, it's been sold, but I don't know if it's high.
So that is like one step that you also
Yes.
took to show colleges that you're like 1 foot in the professional world.
Yes.
P. Titan, you are an active president as president of your STEM club, and I know that a lot of that was inspired by your outside research. Can you please share with us what kind of research you did and where, and were you able to publish that in a scientific journal?
There's a lot of questions. Let's see if I can answer all of them. So I think the important part about conducting scientific research is that you find a problem that is relevant to you, something that is meaningful to you, something that will make you want to wake up the next day and start doing it instantly. And to me, my first project was to detect lung cancer using machine learning, a computer vision problem. This problem was kind of something that was the starting point of all my research projects, actually. I was inspired because in 7th grade, my aunt passed away from misdiagnosis. She was not, the doctors misdiagnosed her, and she just found out that she has terminal stage cancer, and she passed away like almost in like 2 months. And that pain has stuck with me for a long time. And so after acquiring the skills of the computer science and knowing how to program, I started doing research and started reaching out to professors at Thammasat University. And after that research was complete, I decided to give a proposal to JSTP. It's a science research funding by the government, and they will pair you up with a mentor. For me, that mentor was Dr. Tirowit. He works at Vistech Rayong, and so it's quite a trip there. And sometimes I miss like 2 weeks of school straight just to do this research. And I think the end result was pretty good. I was able to publish my findings on the IEEE Explore Journal. And I was also selected as Thailand's representative at the 2020 Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair, which was done online, of course. Is there anything else? STEM, right? While I was working at Vistech, I met a senior programmer, and he kind of inspired me to do a lot with STEM. He always helped me with my programming bugs and everything, and it just made me felt like I want to give back to this community of younger people who may just be starting out and not knowing where to start doing research or just hate science in general. I want to change the perspective on science, that science is not something that is just theory. I think science is a beautiful thing, as beautiful as art, as long as you view it from the right perspective, and that's why I created the STEM Club.
Just to clarify for our audience, Vistech is a university in Rayong,
Yes,
right?
it's a research institute in Rayong. It's only for graduate and doctorate students, so I was the youngest person there.
And P. Fresh, one of the most outstanding things about you is that you really showed initiative. You also have a passion for engineering activism, right? Can you tell us about that and how it manifested into your projects?
Oh, great question. Yeah, so I do believe one of the things that helped me stand out were the different initiatives I founded. So I created things from apps, websites, companies, patents, anything else? Education curriculum. Like, I created a lot of things, which I think creating things is always a great way to show that you care about something, that you're not happy with currently existing solutions. So I can talk a bit about your specific request of engineering and activism. So one of the projects I did was an online platform to help young people seek support for their mental health problems. So this was an online platform that I had created, and we also researched and developed a artificial intelligence algorithm that recognizes hate speech online, and we got it implemented in different support networks around the world. And another thing that I did relating to engineering and activism was, this was inspired by a research I did at UPenn, which was on collapsible surfaces in origami. So I love origami, folding paper. And I decided to use the principles of origami to turn it into a social project. So I invented a system where we used origami to help blind children learn math and geometry. So as you can imagine, blind children are not able to see shapes, so it's really hard for them to learn it. But origami is a great way where you can touch, you can feel and fold, and you can visualize these shapes. So I created this system, and we got it implemented at schools that teach blind children in Thailand in the curriculum there as well. So that was another example of how, I initiated and made connections between different things that aren't so obvious and are very kind of true to me and what I kind of want to solve in the world. Yeah.
How about Peak? You're an experienced archaeologist, published a history book that is on sale on Amazon, and you won a prestigious history award from Cambridge University also. So can you tell us about how your passion in history got started and what topics you really enjoy?
So for history, I was interested in history since I was really young because I love reading comic books about historical fiction, and I love watching historical fiction movies like Indiana Jones, Enemy at the Gates, those kind of things. So that really got me to reading, and the documentaries also really interest me. Regarding the extracurriculars, what I think was very important was we need to seek recognition from renowned third parties like Cambridge University, the research award. I think the guide I published on Buddhist archaeology was indexed in Harvard Library, and I think Brown University had a copy in their library also. So I think the overall theme is that we need to seek recognition from third parties that verify our accomplishments.
So your history book was indexed by those universities that you just mentioned, right?
I think Brown has a copy and Harvard indexed it.
And PP, during your summers and winter breaks, did you also spend your time doing field work on archaeology?
Yes, I did field work at a site called the Nong Ratchawat site in Suphanburi, which is 3 hours up north from here. So you kind of learn what archaeologists do, and you get to work with Neolithic age artifacts, the tools, and it's really cool to really get to handle them.
P-Bomb, you also did a research on nanocatalysts, right?
Yep.
And how is that research different from, I would say, the research Pete Titan did?
Well, our fields are completely different. Titan's doing CS, right? My research is more chemical and biological engineering. So basically, my research is very technical at first, so I'm trying to explain this in as lay's terms as possible. And so basically, when you want to mass produce chemical processes, you have to use something called catalyst, right? And nanocatalysts are basically a modified version of the catalysts, which are much smaller and much better, so they speed up the chemical reaction a lot faster. But currently, these catalysts are produced in batch processes. So, once you make 100 of them, you have to stop the process and make another 100 of them. So what it basically did was initiated a control production system, control flow production system, which is basically you don't have to, produce the catalyst in batches, but as long as you have the process running and as long as you add more reactants, and you can continuously produce more and more of those catalysts. So it's very technical. A lot of you might probably be asking how did you get into this research in the first place? I don't even know a single thing about CS machine learning. As long as you go on Google, research a lot about the things you're interested in, learn to code from online courses. As long as you have the passion, that's why I think passion is really important, because it makes your project sustainable. As long as you want to keep doing those things, like Titan said, then you can, you'll learn more naturally, and you'll be able to contact the professors from different universities. And if they see that, you're interested enough, even though you're young, they might give you a chance. And there's going to be a lot of rejections, but if you're passionate enough, then you'll get one acceptance, and that's all it takes.
And P-Bomb, your project, to summarize, it's about water management, right? And helping the environment.
Water management is an application of the nanocatalyst. Mm-hmm. So basically, these nanocatalysts can also purify water. One of the applications is to purify water, and so being able to produce these nanocatalysts in a control flow means that you can purify water much faster in cases of natural disasters and things like that.
I would like to emphasize on something I said already. The JSTP program is one of the best programs for Thai students to start conducting research when you don't have any idea who to contact. They will pair you up with a professor automatically, and they also give you funding for that research. So I think it's an extremely important program that I want everyone to be a part of, and I kind of push that in my STEM club quite a lot. And so for Baum, he met a professor, he emailed him somehow. But for some people, it might be hard to do that because you don't know who's an expert in what fields. So I think a good starting point is to find something you want to do, start researching online what has already been done. If you can find a professor in Thailand who specializes in that field, that's great. If you can't, try contacting NSTDA. There are so many resources available to you as if you just try to search it up.
I think that points out to seeking out third parties and third party validation. P-Bomb, you also won the Google Science Fair. You were like one of the finalists for your project, right?
Right. So a lot of the projects I did, once I have them established, you want to seek third-party recognition. So you already have those established projects. You have Research Project 1, Research Project 2, Organization 1, Organization 2. But now you want to spread word about it. You want to get recognition so it can expand, or you learn new things along the way. So you apply these research projects to different competitions. You try to apply your organization, even if it's an activism, entrepreneurship organization. I did the same thing with iSaver. So applied to several competitions, and you not only get the awards, which you get to mention in your application, but you also learn a lot of new things. So like regarding the research project, I also went to a conference at Oxford University, and I was able to discuss with a lot of the professors and came back to improve existing procedures which they recommended. So I think as long as you have those established projects, there's no harm in applying to competitions in order to seek third-party recognition.
I think for third-party recognition, there are many ways to do that. You can either get published on a paper if you're like science-based, STEM-based. You can also do many things such as competitions like Baum said. I did a few for Thailand and also got into ISEF. But I think one of the most important third-party recognition is someone who's like an expert in that field and could write a recommendation letter for you. I personally had my professor who was advising me write that recommendation letter for me. And I think it helped quite a lot because he was an expert in neuroscience, computer science, and it validated how I work. And he was pretty close to me, so he knew exactly how hard I worked, how hard it is, and how difficult the project was. So I think it's important to have a professor to validate your expertise in that field, your efforts, and your actual work and its importance too.
And I think that applies to all our panelists here. P-Peak, P-Shwin, you guys had the Olympiad. P-Titan, P-Sai, P-Bomb, and P-Fresh, you guys had many awards, exhibitions, and all those things, right? P-Titan, you also got the IEEE, a very prestigious competition, right?
IEEE is a journal. It's quite prestigious. It's kind of hard to get in and get your work published. But what I did was I submitted a conference paper, so it was published, and I also received the opportunity to present my research at the conference. So I think conference is a good starting point for those who do not want to submit a full paper or are not ready yet. I think a conference helps quite a lot. It allows you to kind of have a paper type thing. It also helps with the brainstorming of ideas. You get ideas from other people, and I think it also looks good on your profile if you get to present and have pictures for it. It's pretty cool. It's fun. Trust me. Go for it.
P-Shwin, something interesting about you is that you're currently taking a gap year right now. Can you explain a little bit about how you're using your time and what you're currently doing?
Oh, so actually, I'm actually in a research intern position, but in corporate research though, in computer vision, which is actually what Titan specializes in. So I'm at a company called Certis right now, which does data analytics and computer vision products. So throughout the year, I'll probably be interning at different places. Just to kind of explore the job market here in Thailand, see if it's viable to come back in the field of CS, because I don't know, most I'd say most jobs in the US in CS are probably pay better, but also more interesting work. You rarely get to work on more exotic products here in Thailand. Most of the products are in banking or I don't know, it's pretty typical products in that you develop. Whereas in in the US, you have companies like Google, they're like working on their search engine, looking at Facebook, maybe places like Palantir who work with the CIA, stuff like that. Like cool stuff might be more interesting there. So I'm like right now I'm just trying to assess the market, see what opportunities there are, like if there are any, and then just see how it goes from there.
Then would you say taking a gap year is beneficial? What advice do you have for people who are thinking of taking a gap year?
Oh yeah, it really depends on your kind of your like what you want to do. If you're doing CS, it's a field where you don't really they don't require a degree. You can pretty much self-study everything in CS. So for a high school student like me, it's possible to get an internship or a job even. Like I know some people who have gotten full-time jobs by after taking a gap year here in Thailand as a high school student, because the field just doesn't really need qualifications unless you're working at I don't know, Google or something. So yeah, but then if you're in something like accounting, for example, it's probably not really possible to do the same thing, right? So whether or not you take a gap year is highly dependent on the field of study that you're going to go into.
I like to keep in mind that you chose to take a gap year after you already applied and you got accepted to Stanford.
Oh,
right?
yes. I probably wouldn't have taken a gap year if it wasn't for COVID. But yeah, probably not really a good idea to gap year and then apply. Probably apply first, get in, then take a gap year. Yeah.
A question that Stanford asks is how you spent your summer. So, P. Fresh, can you tell us a little bit about how you did that?
Yeah, that's a funny question that Stanford asks. So what I wrote in mine, I wrote about the World Mathematics Championships, which was a competition that I had participated in during the summer. So I wrote about that. I also wrote a lot about how I kind of developed the different projects I do and kind of brought them to life as well, because I think that that's always a part of the application that a lot of people don't emphasize. They emphasize, the final result, getting all these awards and stuff, which is definitely try to do that as well. But I think the process and building towards that, how you grow, the obstacles you face trying to create these projects is often a very valuable thing to have in your application. So I also talked a bit about that and about traveling with my family as well. So, not everything has to be about kind of the application side of things. But yeah, those were the things that I talked about in that essay.
So how were you able to include that in just 50 words?
Well, I had to be very concise, so it was only 50 words. So I really had to just really be smart about how to use the words. The thing about essays is that they don't give you a whole lot of room. You'll find out, it's very hard to represent exactly who you are in these very limited space. So I just really had to think about what was the most important part that I wanted to convey and just squeeze it in.
PP, you won a very prestigious award, which is the International History Olympiad Medal in Berlin. Can you tell us about how and where did you prepare for that?
A lot of it came down to self-studying and once again, Omega Prep. Cheers to them. They helped me prepare a lot for both the written part and the oral part of the exam, which is a buzzer-based kind of thing. The thing about the International History Olympiad is that it looks good and it really gives value to the application in the sense that its name is the International History Olympiad. So nice way to go if you're interested in history.
Okay, so that concludes our second section, which is activities inside and outside of school. If you have any questions for this section, please raise your hand or hand a piece of paper to our staff. Do you have any questions?
Okay, so in terms of seeking out opportunities to volunteer or anything, how do you kind of recommend we go, we kind of initiate that? How do you kind of seek out or take initiative to find things that you're able to do during, the summer or any other sort of time outside of school?
Okay, so I'll start on this question. So I think with these opportunities, there's really two ways, right? So one is either you seek out pre-existing opportunities, or two is you create your own opportunities. And it often feels really limiting sometimes to be in your school. So a lot of the times we think about, what opportunities are possible within our school. But once you step outside of school and start interacting with the different organizations and bodies that exist outside the school gates, that is usually when you start finding all of these opportunities. And a really good way, I think, is to speak to older students. So for example, us here, or even, people that perhaps are more closer to you and your family who have been through this process, because they know, the sort of opportunities that their friends have found, the sort of recognition their friends have received, and how you can go about doing that. So with the pre-existing opportunities, sometimes just searching them on Google can be quite helpful. And keep an eye out for different competitions and stuff like that, because this might be through your school, which your school might tell you about competitions that are happening that you can enter. Or sometimes it can be on social media. On a lot of websites, they will just tell you about events. So one thing that I really like is just going to events that are happening near you. So you can go on Facebook events. You can go on places like Eventbrite, where you can see events that are happening around you. So a lot of those are like conferences, competitions, pitches. You could hear lots of kind of business ideas and stuff like that. And that's usually a great way for you to find out about these different connections. Sometimes you go to one of these conferences, you hear someone presenting on a really exciting startup that they have, and you can just go up to them and say, hey, do you need a hand? Can we help? What role can I take? And going to these in-person events may be a little bit hard right now just because things are online, but I actually see that as an advantage, because when things are online, you can interact from your living room. You don't have to be scared walking up to a big stage. You're just, in Zoom. It's quite easy to find these opportunities nowadays, I think, because it's taking place online. And a lot of the competitions around the world, instead of being hosted in Europe, in America, in Australia, in like really far off places, they're now being hosted online. So there's very little cost to that, and there's no need to fly to different places, which can often lead you to miss school. So I think take on this opportunity right now as a time to really seek out opportunities everywhere in the world, because they're all happening online and we all have equal access to these online platforms. So yeah, I think now is a great opportunity during COVID, and that's one of the few good things that have come out, I think.
I just wanted to add, for me, like if I didn't have this opportunity to exhibit with the gallery that I had, I would still I would reach out to more local galleries and just knock at every one of their doors and just present them with my portfolio and just hope that one would be able to collaborate with me. Yeah, so I think for me, because I'm in the art side, it's about researching and reaching out to different places, different institutions, and for art that's like galleries or museums, depends.
I think for seeking out opportunities, sometimes when for me at least, when I was trying to contact my professor for my drowsiness driving and those kind of research, right? I actually was so scared to mail someone I don't know, like an expert in that field, and I'm like nobody. I'm like 11th grader, so I was so scared. I wrote a really long, scary. I was so scared. I wrote at least 500 words explaining who I was and why I wanted to do the research, and the professor simply replied, "Lol, why so formal? I added you on Facebook." I'm not even joking, and so I think sometimes it may be scary, but then definitely take the first step. And if you have that initiative, you'll be successful, I think.
Actually, one thing that I'd like to add is actually looking for opportunities outside of school is actually so important compared to looking for opportunities inside of school, because that's what makes you stand out, right? Like if you join a club at school, everyone has the opportunity to join that club, right? Like it's spoon-fed to you, right? Probably universities want to see that you're looking for something else other than what's being already spoon-fed to you, right? So I guess the point is try to lean on the side of outside of school rather than inside of school to make yourself really stand out.
Yeah, because remember that when they look at your applications, they have to go to tens of thousands of applications, and if they see the same thing over and over again, obviously every school is gonna have similar clubs. So even though you're doing something impactful inside of that school club, it still may not be as appealing as starting a new organization outside of school, since that catches the eye of the application reader.
Okay, do we have any other questions for our panelists? We can go to the back first, and then we can come to Biu Biu.
So, as the panelists mentioned a lot about research, I would like to know that would it be better to follow a professor's research and give them a hand, or would it be more outstanding to start your own new research?
Start your own research, please. I think that it's important that before you contact a professor, you have something you really want to work on. Yes, it's kind of important to find a professor that knows what you want to do, but then I think it's like, I have like many friends who just like say that, yeah, I went to work with this professor on this research, and they have like the 5th name on the paper or something, and that does not really look impressive. It looks as if you just hired someone to do it for you. So I think that if you're going to do research and you're going to publish a paper, your name must be like number 1. You must be first author. You must be creative in your approach in thinking about that research in the first place. Because if it's someone else's idea, then I don't see how that would be helpful on your application. Quite honestly, anyone can help a professor do research, but not everyone can actually come up with something meaningful, impactful to society, and is also actually passionate about it, and also has the skills to do it. So I think definitely think of your own research before contacting a professor.
I'd say helping professors with their research also has a lot of benefits too. Like I definitely agree, starting your own research is great. But if there is currently existing research, especially if the professor is quite famous, that really matches your specific interests really well, then that's a great thing to do. Because for me, the research I did at UPenn was with a professor who was doing it on origami-inspired engineering, which was exactly what I wanted to do. And it was very unique to me, right? So if you do find those opportunities, then I think going for it is brilliant, right? But I think what Titan means is that if sometimes doing research for a professor who has already initiated that research, if it's more generic and it's more general, then maybe that's when it becomes a little bit, I guess, not as impressive. But I do think that there are merits as well to helping a professor do research who has initiated and is a trailblazer in a particular very niche field.
I definitely agree with that. I think another benefit, because I might have discredited your suggestion, I think that another great benefit of actually working with a professor on a work that he or she is already doing, right, is that you get more ideas. It's a good starting point for someone who has not conducted research and might not want to just jump right into it like I did. So I think it's a good option, and you might want to try it if you have no ideas yet.
So one of the things I want to touch on research is that for research in the humanities, like there are not that many resources. Like there are no renowned professors, researchers who would probably assist you on the research paper itself. So like if you're writing a research paper on the humanities, literature, the social sciences, you're kind of on your own. So that would be my take on the humanities research.
If you're considering, even if you're going into STEM, but you have an interest in arts, I think that researching doesn't have to be long papers or projects. I think if you're coming to this side, it's also can be the man hours you put in. Even if you're science-based or math-based, but you want to do something that has a more artistic application, you could start experimenting with materials or different forms of representations, through coding or through different industrial softwares. It doesn't need to be in written form or involving another organization, a institution, outside communities. Yeah, so it can be within your own home, but you're showing a different language that you're using, not just in written form. It could be different products that you make, or these lineage of processes and experimentation that could amount to no specific conclusion or a successful reached hypothesis.
Thank you so much for your answers. Let's move on to Biu Biu's question.
So between all the research and all the awards and the exhibitions and whatnot, do you think it's also important to sort of maintain your mental psyche through more leisurely activities such as sports or maintaining your personal lives, that sort of thing?
I think for me it really helped because I'm going into art, so that also helps sort of balance out like the mindset you have for like school academics and then like for other things. But because I find myself stressing out about art more, that may be like self-destructive, but it's okay. I think that it's really important to treat yourself, like go and have a nice dinner, just leave school for a while and leave that like mindset for a while. And I think if you really take time to think about other things that are not school related, you start to find yourself sort of leaning towards your passion, and like all these sorts of thoughts come up that really like mind opening, like different applications for what you might like. It can be totally opposite than your favorite subject, but then like, oh, you just thought of this connection between these two, and that could help like spawn a new idea about a research that you might do with a third party.
How I usually release my stress is playing volleyball. I'm also in the school team, the varsity team, and that's like a big part of me, of who I am too. I get to connect with people on my team. I learn a lot about my teammates. We suffer a lot together. We learn a lot from each other. But most importantly, you learn to be in a society that might be different from your usual one. For me, I'm always hanging out with the nerds and the computer scientists and all those smart people like Bomb. And it can be stressing and taxing sometimes. And sometimes you want to just release that stress and have some fun. And I think sports is a really great way to do that. And I think music is also a big part of me. I also play piano sometimes when I'm stressed. And if I don't remember how to play anything because it's been so long, I just slam on the keys sometimes. It helps a lot. I think Shuin can relate.
Yeah, so yeah, it's actually quite important to have something else other than your like, you're more, especially if you're like a STEM student, like you're more nerdy sort of side, I'm like CS Olympiad and all, but I still do like opera singing and stuff like that, like I take up that side too, and actually having that dual like personality even, not bipolar, but like a dual personality kind of makes it a bit more appealing to colleges even, because they know that you're not one-dimensional. You have multiple dimensions to your like being, right? And that kind of makes you more of an appealing candidate even. So you're hitting two birds with one stone here. You're spending time to relax, at least I think, but also, you're building your profile in a different way even. So I guess it's a win-win situation. Yeah.
I mean, like, if what you do is what you like, then it won't be stressful, right? So, like, kind of answering Dubiu's question, like, if you're doing something that you're already passionate about, the stress is not even in the picture,
I don't want to turn this into a debate, but doing something you like can actually be really, really stressful when you have high expectations for yourself and high expectations for the result of your work. While I was working on my drowsiness detection system, I was extremely stressed when the results kept leveling off at 76% accuracy. And even though I love computer science, I love working on this project, I love seeing numbers change, and I'm a nerd, it still stresses me a lot just to see the same algorithm or different algorithm fail. So I think it's definitely important that you find an alternative hobby that you like. As much as you are passionate about your research or your area of interest, you need to find something that you can fall back onto, whether it be sports, music, anything, anime.
Which you could also utilize in your application. Because I believe, like, Shuin, Titan, and me, we all wrote about music as part of our applications. Possibly Fresh too, who sings really well, by the way. And so, so you can make use of your ability to relax in your application as well. So I believe many of you, do sports and music, and if you do, I encourage you to pursue it like to the fullest level you can, and then that will help in your application.
I think it shows that you are human, that you are tired sometimes, you are stressed sometimes, and you actually have something that you're human in general. I think they don't want numbers. They don't want an Asian nerd without a life. I think universities want a human, someone who they can relate to, and I think that is extremely important.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, we'll go to our last question here before we move on.
So you all say that time management is really important. So I was wondering, like, how do you guys manage time to do these like research projects and such? Like, is there a specific time? Do you do it during like school times, or do it only during the break, or what is it?
For me, I think all of these were during, like, after school, weekends, holidays, so just time when I wasn't meant to be in school. That's really, really valuable time that you can be using to develop, you know, these extracurriculars and getting recognition and all of these things we've been talking about, right? And as for how do you divide the time between homework and school, because, you know, you need to get good grades in school too, right? That's a given. You need to be dividing the time between how to, you know, get the work done that's from school, all the homework assignments, but also doing these extra things. And a lot of that, I think, comes down to kind of gut instinct as well for me. I think, like, once you feel like you get a concept in school, you've done the homework to the best of your ability, that's the rest of the time is yours to spend how you want. But you should also be mindful that if you're spending every single waking minute revising for that upcoming chemistry exam, that doesn't leave you any time to do anything else unless you don't want to sleep. So you really need to be thinking about, you know, what is the right amount to do for school, so that it's not too much and not too little. And I think there is that middle ground kind of optimum point that you need to locate. And sometimes it's really nice to speak to your seniors. It's nice to be able to speak to friends as well who are in the same ambitious position and see what they're doing, because usually it's a nice way to be able to fit all of these things into 24 hours.
I personally think there are a lot of ways to increase your time for doing other things. Number one is definitely don't sleep as much, but then I don't recommend that. Number two, you can use a lot of time during your commute to do productive things. Read a book, do something that's useful. Maybe study for a test in the car. I do that quite a lot. And the last way is try to not take IB. It takes a lot of your time. You do a lot of work at home, I think. If you take AP, there's less homework, definitely. You only study for tests. And study efficiently. For calculus, just do practice problems. For psychology, try to use flashcards. There are so many ways to optimize your studying habits. And for different subjects, you study differently. And when you do that, you have more time for other things in life.
I try to reach for the minimum score for my standard and for my university standard to get in each subject. So yeah, I don't aim like for school subjects that I don't really enjoy or are not really like art school based. I don't set for, okay, I need to get 100%. Like I try to set, okay, just get 90% and review it once, and then the rest of the time I used to either like relax or do something about art. So yeah. And if you're in subjects that you don't like, you can't understand what the teacher is talking about, just do the other subject's homework. That's more effective, really.
I usually try to spend as little time on school as possible. So the way I do it is I actually bucket my time. So I will actually stay after school at school, so I know I'm in school to do school work. And then after that, I'll just not do any more school work. So I always look forward to like during the evening and at night to do everything else that's not related to school, because that's where my passion lies outside of school, right? We want to think of school as just an annoyance that we have to get through and do well in, but if we spend any more time on school, it detracts from all the other stuff that makes us amazing. That's kind of my take on it. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's move on to our third and last section.